Hey there, and welcome to the channel. This is Ill Factor from beatacademy.com, and I want to share with you some music production tips and techniques while recreating the beat from Kid Laroi's Stay, featuring Justin Bieber. So let me show you what it sounds like when it's all said and done. Now, although I'm going to be walking you through this breakdown using Ableton Live, you could follow along using any DAW that you're currently using, whether it's Logic, Fruity Loops, Pro Tools, Studio One. All the principles should very much carry over, and you could get the same results. So let's go ahead and get started. All right, so let's start with the drums. It's a pretty straightforward beat. And for the actual sounds, I'm going to go over to the Beat Academy sample pack, and I'm going to head over to this folder here called Just Pop and use the kick and snare drum samples that are located in that folder. And just a heads up, you can access this folder absolutely for free just by clicking the link below in the description box. I'll also give you more details throughout this video as to what else is included with that download link. So I've got a drum rack here loaded with those two sounds. Now let's just go ahead and draw in our pattern. Double click here and let's simply put our kick and our snare. And our tempo is at 170 BPMs. So we'll go ahead, double click, and place the pattern there. Pretty straightforward. So let's go ahead and duplicate this. We're going to take this 1 bar loop, change it into a 4 bar. So right now it's at 2 bars. Let's duplicate that again. We've just duplicated the 2 bars into 4 bars. And that is because at the turnaround at bar 4, we're adding an extra kick pattern here. Just like that. Now, what I've done is I went ahead and made sure that in the simplers here, I just cranked up the volume a little bit, and I'm adjusting the sustain and the release of some of these samples. The sustain is what's going to make that sample sound a bit more staccato or shorter. See, when the sustain's fully up, you got a lot more of that beef, and I want to just cut that back a little bit. And I have an EQ on that kick drum just to take away some of the high end and a little bit of that low or that mid-range dip there at around 400 hertz. Now, once we've got that pattern in place, let's go ahead and add some processing to that. So I'm going to use Ableton Live's drum bus here. And I notice if you're following along using Logic, there's a video on my channel that walks you through step-by-step on how to recreate this plugin using stock Logic plugins. But simply what we're doing is adding some drive here, some saturation, and then we're going to add some crunch, more overdrive towards the mid frequencies. And we're going to dampen the EQ a little bit, so we're cutting off anything from 18 hertz or higher. And using this transient designer, not even really using it, it's just a little bit. But really, this boom knob, which adds some harmonic sub-frequencies and gives some nice low-end beef to the drums. Now, why not just add more low-end to the kick? Well, here's the reason why I like adding the boom to the drum rack, meaning that it's including the snare, the kick and the snare, because it's also adding some of that low harmonic information when the snare hits as well. So it does change the character of the snare response. I'm going to lower this down a little bit. And then I'm using the Rough Rider by Audio Damage, Rough Rider 2, amazing compressor. And it gets a really punchy response. And this is absolutely free. You can download this. I'll put the link in the description box below. But yeah, let's go ahead and use this. Now, what I'm trying to do is, these are already set samples. There's not a lot of dynamic changing that's happening with the kick and snare. They're going to be the same volume. So what am I using this compressor for? I'm using the compressor to accentuate specific aspects of the kick and snare. So I want more of that transients to pop through of the kick and snare. I want more of that to be evident presence. That's why I'm using this compression. So with like a medium or slow attack here, that's going to let the initial transients come through, a quick release, and just messing around with the sensitivity, basically the threshold, till I find a nice sweet spot. So it just kind of nicely evens that out. All right, let's head back to the Beat Academy sample pack folder, use a drum loop that's here, and I'm going to drag and drop that into our session view. I'm adding this as a layer to add some more texture to the drums that we just created. There's a couple things we need to do first. So I want to pitch this down. That's going to give more texture to the loop. And we want to shorten those transients. We want to make it a little bit more staccato. So let's go ahead and pitch this down. Let's just say, I don't know, 8 semitones. And then we'll go here, leave the warp mode to beats, but instead of forward and backward in the way it's preserving the transients, let's just go forward once and lower the number value. That's cool there. And I'll just highlight that first bar and hit Command L. That's cool. Now let's just give a little bit of some dirt to that. And I'm going to go over to the drive color folder and go to erosion. Just using the sine wave, just messing around till you find a really nice sweet spot. And then using our EQ to cover out some of the low end. Now let's add a tambourine loop. We're going to implement some upward compression, which is going to give us a really cool, unique type of groove with this tambourine. So here's the tambourine. And we can change the start time here or where the loop is actually starting. So move that there. And that's going to accent the snare. But let's say you don't have an accent on the tambourine. I want to show you how to do that with some upward compression. So I'm going to put a compressor here. We're going to side chain it. And I want to access the drum rack. And in the drum rack, we're going to have the snare drum. We'll do post effects. And essentially what we're going to be doing is we're going from peak to RMS over to the expand. And this is basically flipping it in reverse. Usually in sidechain, when you hear the source, such in this case the snare, the tambourine will duck. Now, every time you hear the snare, the tambourine is going to be accented. Right? So you notice the lower I went with the threshold, the more accented that sound became when the snare hits. That's cool. I want it to actually be accented with the snare hit. And we'll add some overdrive to gritty up the snare, tambourine. All right, now let's focus on the main riff that we can hear at the beginning and throughout the song. For this, I'm going to use Ableton Live's Wavetable plugin. Drag and drop that over here. And when I listen to the sound, it feels like there's some kind of piano or electric piano mixed with some bright buzzy sounds. So that immediately gets my mind over to like a sawtooth, but combined with a different type of wavetable here. So normally what we do is we use our, the square, sawtooth, triangle, and sine. But instead what we're going to do is where it says basics, we're going to click that and choose instrument. And here we have a different array of different wavetables sampled by these different instruments. So we'll start with piano. And so we'll just basically comb through this till we find a really cool. So that's cool. We'll start there. And let's just take a look at the riff here. And once again, you could download the set with the link below. All right, now let's combine this oscillator with oscillator 2, which will be a sawtooth. And then what we're going to do is start to enable our filter frequency. So let's just take this one down to, not have it sound so harsh. Then we're also going to cut some of the low end away by using our second filter. And that we're also going to kind of bring over here, maybe around 300 to 400. Now I want to shape the actual body first. So our amp envelope, let's focus on that. This is going to shape the overall body, the response of the notes to this synthesizer. So let's start by just lowering, let's say, the sustain down so that the notes don't sustain as long. Just brought up the release a little bit. And then I'm going to bring the decay up. And I just nudge the attack up a little bit. Now, focusing on this polyphony set, normally if you switch it to mono, it will turn it into just a lead. But we don't want that. So we'll go back to polyphony. Instead of 8 voices, let's narrow it down to 2. So there wouldn't be any more overlap than just 2 notes playing at the same time. And then I want to be able to tweak this filter frequency so it opens up a little bit. So let's route that. We'll click the filter frequency here over to our envelope 2. Let's just send a little bit of that. So maybe around here, 22. And back to our mod sources. Focusing on envelope 2 now, let's shape that up. So let's bring sustain down a little bit and open the release a little bit more and open the decay. Now, giving us some depth and some chorus, turning on the unison here. Let's head over to, let's try shimmering. The shimmer one, maybe messing around with the amount of voices and the amount applied. Okay, and let's add an octave lower by hitting the sub here. And what this is going to do is just create another oscillator, technically, that we can layer with the 2 oscillators. And now let's give a little bit of resonance, some peak bump here. So I'm going to boost up the resonance on the first filter. That's really going to accent that higher frequency stuff. And then let's give a little bit of filter drive. Back to the amp envelope, increase the release a little bit. Let's put a filter on top of this. I'm going to go to audio effects folder here and into the filter category, drag and drop the auto filter. And this is what's going to help give it that blanket filtered sound that we hear at the beginning. Now let's add some echo to this. I definitely want some ping pong because I want the signal to go left and right. And let's start by setting this maybe to a quarter note value. That's cool. And bringing the dry and wet down a little bit. What I like about this echo is that I can filter out the actual delayed frequency, so I don't get a lot of the muddy low end. We can widen this up and actually send some reverb to the delayed signal. Put the ping pong there. Now, what I'm noticing is that it's getting a little jumbled up. So in the character section, I can enable the ducking and lower the threshold so that the dry signal of the lead causes the delay to duck out of the way. And that's a really cool feature. So it will clean this up a little bit. Normally what I would do is kind of add some wobble, maybe something from like an RC 20 plugin. We can do that here using the pitch and modulation. So I'm going to go to chorus and ensemble, and I'm going to go over to the vibrato, and that's going to cause some of the pitch modulation. So bring the rate down. Widen this up with a regular chorus right after that. We'll leave that on the classic mode. And then what we'll do is go ahead and just mess around with the rate and some of the settings here. See what it's like with the drums. And throughout the arrangement, we can just open up the filter frequency here. So this is a cool sound, and I might even implement that type of sound and do some more tweaking to carry out a main riff, a main melodic movement in my projects that I can then write other harmonic pieces to that. You might want to do that in your projects. And by the way, if you're looking for professional guidance into helping you take your next step forward with producing your own music, I definitely recommend that you visit beatacademy.com. Take advantage of all the resources that I have available for you there and the many mentorship opportunities that are there. And yeah, that's going to help you take your next step forward with producing your own music. All right, so let's head over to the bass. So for the bass, I've got one of my favorite bass plugins here, Moto Bass by IK Multimedia, using the modern J bass preset. On the play style, though, this is very important. I'm muting it by 60%. This is going to make it nice and short. It makes it, so that the bass doesn't actually ring out after each of the notes. So here is the bass part. And we've got that nice little glide here at the end. And that is done by just writing in some of my modulation. So I'm using, as you can see here, I wrote in the modulation at that last note. And that's important. That's what gives a little bit more of that nuanced authenticity there. And to have that set, you go into the control and that legato slide, you want to click here and map that. You can hit learn and simply just touch your MIDI controller's modulation wheel and it'll map it to that. And I could just draw that in. And that's pretty much it. And I've just got a stock compressor here, reducing about maybe 6 to 5 dB of gain reduction. Then we're going to EQ this to take out some of that that low mid here. And then adding the saturator is going to really give some nice crisp and some drive to this. But I'm balancing this out. So let's put it all the way. Now, that on its own, it just gets it's just too distorted. So let's just blend that signal with a little bit of the dry signal. And the erosion plugin is going to give a little bit of air to that buzz. This is with everything off. Next, we're going to add some more emphasis and access to the chords by using a stock Ableton Live piano preset here. And just messing around with some of the reverb, adding space. But this is what's going to give it that classic, almost like an electric piano type sound. And that's drenching it in some of this chorus. And then to layer that and having a pad almost kind of layer those chords, having the piano and pads separate but playing the same thing really helps glue the arrangement sonically. So here I'm using Ableton Live's wavetable again, but any synth that you might have could easily create the same type of sound because we're using just oscillator one set to a sawtooth. And what we're doing is we're shaping the amp envelope, and that's really where the the pad is created, all in the amp envelope here. So for instance, sharp attack or quick attack, right? Let's not do that. Let's give it a little bit of swell so that the pianos can handle the attack of the chords. And then extend the release so that you can hear the notes kind of linger after they're done playing. It's a little too bright though, so let's bring the filter frequency down to give some warmth to the pads. And what really does the magic here, as you see, is the unison. Without the unison, it's just a little bit, well, puny. So bring the unison back in and create more voices, detune them, and mess around with the amount till you find a sweet spot. And what I'm going to do is just leave this side chained. We'll go to the drum rack here, and let's create a little bit of movement by having the kick drum create the side chain. Now next, I went ahead and recorded some guitars playing just the actual chords that we're doing with the pianos. This is me using a simple, cheap Fender Telecaster I have here, and basically just recorded the guitar chords, and I'm using Native Instruments Guitar Rig 5 to run it through this amp simulator here. I have it set to the AC box and set to a dynamic mic pickup or microphone. And then I re-recorded that, so I'm layering it. I have take one and another take here. And I have them both set to the same guitar rig, and I'm just hard panning it left and right. This is really going to create a nice stereo depth to the rest of the instrumentation. And on the group itself, we have just a glue compressor. And that's just to hug those two guitar tracks together. Now here I've got an Ableton Live guitar mute instrument that comes with I think it's an expansion pack here, but under the instrument rack, I've looked at guitar, I found this guitar mute, and it had the right type of tone and texture, so I liked it. And here is the actual riff. Sounds pretty cheesy, but this is what we're gonna do a couple things to actually make it fit right into the mix of everything. So let's use some RC20 here by Excellent Audio to create a little bit of noise, but mostly the wobble here. And some distortion to gritty that up. And then adding the echo delay plugin here, set to ping pong, so we're hearing the sound bounce from left to right. What's cool is having that reverb knob available to just add reverb to the delayed signal, which is really neat. And now let's go ahead and check this out. Does such a great job with accenting that part, right? Just reminds me of the guitar little mutes that we can hear in Michael Jackson's Human Nature. Just grew up with loving that type of tone and texture. Turn it off. And let's go. Let's put the drum loop back in. There you go. And then a cool thing to kind of just add a nice layer to kind of seal everything together would be this cool little string part that's happening, just sustaining one note throughout the chorus. This is a really cool trick to just kind of musically glue things together, just similar to what like the pads do. So here we have just a basic stock string ensemble from Ableton Live and just holding down the A sharp. Let's go and hear what it sounds like with everybody together. I'm also sending some of this string over to return track B, which has basic reverb that I've got going on and a little bit of delay, which I have an echo on return track A set to every eighth note. Well, that was a lot of fun. I hope some of the tips that I've shared in this video you could use in your projects and inspire you to create some great music. And I want to help you do that. And as my gift for watching this video, I want to send you a sample pack loaded with not just the sounds that we use for the drums in this video, but with many other construction kits, loops, transition effects, one-shots that you can use in your projects. It's 100% royalty free. What that means is use them in your music and don't worry about sharing that music with anyone else. It's yours absolutely free. Just click the link below in the description box or visit beatacademy.com/pack to download this sample pack, as well as this Ableton Live set and many other Ableton Live sets that I've featured on this channel. It's my gift to you. Once again, thank you so much for watching. And if you're looking to take that next step forward with producing music, highly recommend that you visit beatacademy.com and take advantage of all the resources that are there available for you today. Thanks for watching. Be sure to hit the like button, subscribe, yada, 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 all that cool stuff so you can stay up to date with new videos coming out next week. Thanks, and I'll see you soon.